Good morning. I need to practice, but I really feel like I need to discharge my responsibility to give feedback and to our, what did we call it, cappuccino coffee hour? I like that idea, our cappuccino coffee hour that's open to anyone. That's nice. What did I learn? I'm looking at my notebook. How we women, we play with our hair, we flip on our hair, like Sandra Oh in Killing Eve, when she's floofing her hair. It's an odd, it's odd to see that. I always thought that when people touch their hair, they're thinking of sex, they're thinking of how they look, they're thinking about whether or not they're attractive, they're thinking about who they're attracted to. So we were all flipping on our hair. Miriam, not Rosa, but I have to keep the movie I just worked on today of my tap lesson. Save. Okay. I'm learning how to use QuickTime. I don't know how to edit it. Not that I would edit it, but I don't know how to edit it. And I can't even, my brain is at a place where I can't even make sense out of the help tools on computers. I can't even read the manuals. Where are the manuals? There are no manuals. Anyway, couldn't understand them anyway. Okay, so El Bruto Zampano. Roto wrote the Godfather theme. Wow. It was interesting to hear Tom talk about the music that Europe in the 50s wanted independence from Hollywood, Hollywood cliches, Hollywood glamour, Hollywood surfaces, Hollywood fantasies. They wanted to, find neorealism had to do with finding fantasies that are realer, that are more of the heart, fantasies that are more of the spirit. The old fantasies of virtue that was St. Francis, that was probably deep archetypes of kindness, deep archetypes of compassion, deep shards of compassion, architects of archetypes as an analytical tool. Hollywood neorealism. I was so glad we didn't have a review to read before this, so that could go into it with just the existing chaos and confusions that one actually has in oneself, instead of working towards oneself to the movie via Pauline. And I suppose this will never again, this is be like our virginal cappuccino club for me, never again will it be such an innocent process of looking at film through fresh eyes. You'll get used to being a veteran film analyst, and then you have to keep your messages green. That's what Eric Schiffman used to say. He had to keep his yoga classes, his teaching in the presence of his class that was new and magic for each participant. He had to keep it new and magic for himself too. He called it keeping it green, which he said, Eric Schiffman I'm talking about, he was married to Lauren Bacall and what's his name? Senior moment. Their daughter Leslie. Eric Schiffman is Eric, who's a 6'4" tall yogi, marvelous yogi, who talks about keeping your message green. And he said that was do I have to sit here and think who Lauren Bacall was married to? Casablanca. I see him. Trench coat, standing up in front of the House of Unintelligence. Standing up in horror and solidarity behind those who are blacklisted in Hollywood. All right. Anyway, back to uh, neorealism as a response to the brutality of fascism, Francoism in Spain. What's his face in Italy? No names are going to come to me today. I've had too much of my little indica bonbon. Mussolini. That neorealism was an artfelt reaction to church Christianity with its inquisitions and its deep conservatism, its deep war on sexuality, its deep affinity for pomp and requirement and guilt and indulgence and all of the sins of the church. So I think it was Rosa who was talking about Zampano the beast, and that women learned their role as the vulnerable recipient of men's violence, the vulnerable, motherly, all-forgiving caretaker, meter of men's needs, nurturer of their violent, broken men who took out on them what they couldn't take out on the world because they were cowed in some way. The vulnerable woman taking care of the cowed man. That Rosa said that was really, really old. She pointed out that I forgot. I thought Quinn was speaking Italian I watched just in Italian. I didn't have any lyrics. Didn't need them, really. Good God, you can so read that movie without understanding anything of the language. Just listen to it, like watching an opera in Italian. Quinn is a Mexican. Calladite, te ves más bonito. Calladita, calladita, quiet yourself, and you're more beautiful. Or the quiet you is the beautiful you. Like my mother said, oh, you're pretty when you smile. I went to middle school. Did I tell you this? This is a line I'd like to keep reading. I went to middle school, a new middle school, with the message from my mama that I was pretty when I smiled. So I stood in the girls' restroom smiling at my face in the mirror, and you don't think the mean girls could make hay with that. You're pretty when you are quiet. That machismo, that 300,000 little girls in Mexico are sold by their families, like Jelosima was sold by her family to be the brunt of a man's life, or a housekeeper's life. I mean, it could be a woman's life to be the domestic for a brutal and frustrated woman, selfish woman. That 300,000 little girls were sold by their own families in Mexico in 2018, that this relationship between El Bruto and the child female is endemic to machismo societies. And likewise now under the quarantine, that 1,000 women were killed. Somebody mentioned, it must have been Rosa, it's in her section of my notes, that Zampano is sobbing at the end. Sobbing. When men break down sobbing, how many men have you ever seen sob? None? One? And how does it change your feelings for them if they do break and sob? It was very interesting to hear about Fellini's nervous breakdown. Thank you, David, that he couldn't bring the archetypes of the brute and the woman receiving those blows together. He couldn't, apparently he had abused Juliette, his wife, who played Gelosima, and he loathed that in himself. He hated the sadomasochist in himself. My grandmother was a confidant and a psychologist to Bill Inge and Tennessee Williams, and she said that Inge's suicide and a lot of Tennessee's unhappiness was because they rejected their own sadomasochistic tendencies. That was behind their alcoholism, that was behind their self-loathing. And not that they were gay, it was the nature of their fantasies, their rage, their anger, their modeling their image from their fathers, who knows, their projections onto their who knows, mothers. I'm no psychologist, certainly. Psychiatrists, these days, psychiatrists just prescribe your meds. It's your psychologist that you actually talk to. Mejiste, that was very interesting. When Miranda shared that she went back to look at what silent films people were watching in the time period of the film, which, come to think of it, I'm not sure when that was, before the 20s? Yeah, of course, it was in the 30s, between the wars, was it? Between the wars that it was set? I'm getting Jules and Jim confused with La Strada. When was that movie actually set? But in any case, that the little moves that Gelosima was making when she would play in cartoon weren't from Charlie Chaplin necessarily, but that there were other cartoon characters who picked up these notions of what's funny from old commedia, vaudeville, from all vaudeville. Well, Mummers plays, whatever the European equivalent of that circuit was before films. God, so many things one doesn't know. That's what makes writing hard. You would try to get to know them and fill in that piece of ignorance, as opposed to just filming yourself trying to be charming within the vast overlapping intersectionality of ignorance. But anyway, this Mejiste, these cartoons that Fellini had grown up with, and that he lived to fight the masochism. Oh dear. Ella, I'll call you back, sweetie.
Okay, bye.
Okay, so where were we? That Fellini fought to show that the machismo, the being of it, the being influenced by it, the gag hold it had on your fantasies, yourself, your soul, your behavior, your body, was toxic. I want to see the movie Raging Bull. I don't know that. That body type has a huge influence on who we all are, doesn't it? You see that, yeah. You know, you're a mesomorph, you're an ectomorph, you're an endomorph, you can make muscles easily, or you don't make muscles. Okay, now Tom's discourse on the relationship of composers from Europe coming to Hollywood, having been trained in the conservatories of Europe in the 30s and 40s. Remember Stockhausen and Schoenberg and Alban Berg and these guys were in those conservatories, and they were reacting to what they saw as schmaltz, the been there, done that of conventional harmony and melody. It wasn't just that melody was considered powerful, too powerful, and they feared it, but that it was considered as well, in the 70s, when I was in a conservatory, it was considered Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse was the adjective for Hollywood, not just for Disney, but actually Disney had better quality music sometimes than it. I like Disney's music often, but I always thought that that was my dirty little secret, and that was because I was from the Midwest, and that was because I was not hip. But that's me speaking in the 70s. But Hollywood, it struck me, is always selling to its construction of the audience. You see this in politics, where they're selling to the moral majority. They're selling to the suburban woman, to the soccer mom. They're selling to the hunter. They're selling to the working class. They're selling to some notion they have of what human beings are in mass, some primitive sociology that they use as a marketing tool, and so of course these movies, these neo-realistic movies, were being funded by discerning businessmen, aristocrats, by progressive sources of money and curiosity. It's interesting, I don't associate European intellectuals with having come from Harvard or Yale or Princeton or the Sorbonne. I suppose it's true that it's always that way, but you think of the Camus as like their characters, like Genet and Jean Genet. They are underclass beings. They are working people themselves. The Genets of the world, the theaters of cruelty, and thing that I was briefly interested in and continue to be somewhat interested in, the ideas of ensembles of actors and poets, musicians who are speaking truth to bourgeoisie and to power and to each other in kind of brutal, honest, the kind of brutal honesty, Synanon type honesty. Okay, I had to really think. They were talking about whether Gelosimo was attracted to the brute, I recoiled from that. You remember the morning after he threw her into the caravan for the first time, and they slept together. That next morning she wakes up and she looks over at him with kind of a tender, mewling smile, as if perhaps if you don't fight a rape, but you just feel it, and if it's not too rough, or if you like the roughness, the kind of hurt that feels good, she liked his touch, or she liked something about his touch, or maybe she was just so hungry for touch that any kind of touch, her little had to be feral animal came out and responded to Zampanon's rough touch. So was she attracted to him? Yeah. I felt different emotions as different people started to break in and out of the conversation. Mixed feelings about that, even though I had done it myself. It's always so nice when Jocelyn breaks in with her warmth, but other people's I recoiled as tiresome, which is a projection. I'm sure I'm tiresome So when I saw that movie in the early 70s, I was coming out of a childhood in which I identified with Haley Mills, with Tuesday Weld, with Julie Andrews, and I was trying to figure out what parts of my stock characters, my cast calls, applied to me, to my body type, to my hair, to my shyness level, to my or insecurity levels, and confidence, blah, 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 blah. So I was trying to figure that out, and so this Gelosima arrested that. It was a whole new thing. It was very different than trying to see who I was in relationship to Sophia Loren. My father's third wife thought I looked like Sophia Loren when I was 12 years old, and I totally did not look like Sophia Loren, and my body was so different, but she was that jealous. It's not easy being the child of many fathers, many mothers. But maybe it's not easy to be the child of one father and one mother. It's all difficult. I want to watch The Bicycle Thief again. All right, that's my, what is it they say on PBS, my marvelous moment of insights. Took too long, I'm sure. Oh God, 20 minutes. I'm sorry. Ciao.